Hello, everybody, and welcome to Prop Live, your weekly prop and costume making Q&A session. I'm Bill Duran. I'm hiding in my office here today with a giant axe behind me, like you do. And today we're going to be tackling your prop and costume making questions with a splendid guest from the future. And when I say the future, I mean Glasgow, Scotland. Mr. Thom from Sorenzo Props. Hello, Thom.
Hey, Bill. How you doing? Hey, everybody.
I'm doing all right. For those of you just joining us, we are on Twitch now. We're live streaming on Twitch instead of on Google Hangouts like we did before. So we're using the Twitch chat. If you want to chat with us or with one another, head on over to twitch.tv/punishedprops to check it out. And we got an active gang of people over there chatting. So get in on the conversation for today's live episode. Thom, how you doing, man? Other than being medicated like me.
I'm really good. I'm not letting the cold get me down. Still going.
That's good. Cool, man. You've been prolific. You've been getting
prolific. Wow.
Yeah, doing lots of stuff. And world traveled nonetheless.
Oh yeah, I get around. I get around quite a bit. Yeah, I've been very, very busy this year, and in the last year, I've been starting new companies and writing books and starting Patreons and building props every month and just going really crazy with it.
Wow, that is pretty bonkers. Of course, for those of you who are just new to what Thom does, you want to head on over to SorenzoProps.com as the sort of the gateway to everything that Thom does for prop and costume making. In fact, look at that. You got a fancy little badge. You got an ebook out.
I do.
Yeah. What? Why did you write an ebook?
Well,
were you pressured into it from your friends?
I wouldn't say pressure. There might have been a little bit of what would the word be? I don't want to. Some good solid advice to write an ebook, and I started writing an ebook, and I realized that I'm really bad at writing. So I decided before I wrote a big ebook, I'd write a small one, and I wrote this nice little ebook called Just Make It, which is all about staying positive and motivated, and just tips and tricks that I've learned over the years to kind of get you through the day when things aren't going your way. So I wrote that, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I am now about midway through my second book, which I'm
really
hoping
good.
to get out later this spring.
Cool, really, really cool. I'm stoked about that. I'm glad to see you like sort of a double meaning with the book name, right? Just Make It, because it's kind of like with the book. You're like, well, maybe I should just write it. Just get one out the door.
That's it. I thought if I could do something small, something manageable, something not too serious, and then I'll feel like I've had a victory and I can tick something off the box, and then the next task won't seem as daunting.
Yeah. So people ought to go over SorenzoProps.com has a link for that. Go check that out for certain.
And pretty pictures in it too.
Lots of cool pictures and drawings of you and your cat.
Me and my cat, yeah, pretty much.
How do I hide this freaking thing? I want to share your Facebook thing. I'll just click on it. There we go. Here we go. Oh, that's not the picture I wanted. How do I go through pictures? There we go. You've been working on some cool projects lately.
Mm-hmm. I've been doing a few cool things. Yeah.
We got the.
Which one are you looking at?
I'm going to load up the pipe pistol. There we go. That you're giving away, right? What was that?
Yeah, I've not given it away yet. I've still got it sitting here, but it is now currently owned by Hannah, who is a supporter of my Patreon campaign, and it's going to get shipped to her later this week. Every month I'm going to give away a prop piece to anybody who decides to support it. So it encourages me to make something cool, and then I get to give away stuff, and I really enjoy doing that.
That is super awesome. That's a pretty legit looking rusty wooden crazy metal gun too.
It's awesome. I'm really, really happy with that. When it turned out really well, I was so happy with it. I actually built one for myself the next day. because I couldn't bear the thought of giving it away. So I think from now on, when I do the one-day projects, I'm going to build either build 2 at one time or build them to mold them so I can have a copy, because I don't like giving away awesome stuff and not having it for myself.
I know exactly how that feels. Now that you said that one you built in a day, what was that like?
Crazy. It was really, really good. So I spent one day building it and then a few hours the next morning painting it.
Mm-hmm.
I built all the components for 2. So I kind of had spares in case I messed one up and hadn't got time to remake it. And I also recorded the whole process as well. And I'm just about finished the edit for that. So I'll be uploading how I went ahead and made that. That
is pretty sweet. Oh, of course. Just now, I went and found the really pretty photos you took of it. It's so grimy and dirty and rusty, and I love it. It's great. Now I'm working on something. Let's bring it over to my thing. I've got this guy here, a little teaser. I haven't shown it off yet, but I just finished this last night. Raised Blaster. Oh yeah. Of course, I did not build this in a day. I've been working on this for over a month or so, just sort of on and off. But it's a casting, and the real challenge was trying to get the nice metal finish on there. That it's really shiny. Like,
that looks beautiful.
It's so shiny. And I actually have almost 2 of these finished. I have to do the grips on the other one because I will be at least keeping one of these for sure.
Have you molded that completely? Yeah.
Yeah, that one is definitely molded, so I can make more.
Put me on the list for a kit.
This was fun. I did a stream on Tuesday showing me painting. I've been streaming me working on this a bit. One of the things I'm most happy about is the grips on here. I cast in smooth cast onyx, so that's black plastic, and then I didn't have to paint it or anything. I just polished it, and that's pretty legit, and it's super shiny. Yeah. So I'm doing a full build video for that on Monday. At least that's the plan. I have like 170 video clips to sort through to get that one done. But look forward to that, everybody. Let's see. What else do we have going on here? We have your ebook, your one-day build. Got that covered. And your Patreon, which is really cool. I'm excited to see how you're making your Patreon campaign more of an interactive thing, which I think is one of the more powerful aspects of that platform, which is cool.
It kind of is like a sort of mini social media for the few people that are supporting, and I try and do as much as possible. I started a Patreon exclusive build. I've not actually posted about that yet, but I'm going to be designing and building Rey's staff from The Force Awakens.
Oh,
so I think we might be able to do a swap in the future.
How convenient.
I'm using Fusion 360 from Autodesk to use that. It's a really, really neat little program. So I was playing around with it for a couple of hours yesterday, just getting some practice, and I'm going to be uploading videos and sort of maybe tutorials on how I do that to the Patreon.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm actually talking with one of the guys over at Autodesk that works on Fusion 360. I'll be talking to him tomorrow about Fusion 360, so I'm excited to try that out.
No, it's really, really good. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm stoked. So that's patreon.com/Sorenzo Props if you guys want to go check that out. Of course, I guess I have access to the Patreon exclusive stream. All right.
You're a supporter.
Hooray. All right, cool. Well, that's just about. Do you have anything else you're working on you want to talk about, or should we dive into some questions?
I don't really. I've started Aleku, which is quite cool. It's my first venture into prosthetics. Super stoked about that. So I'm going to be. I was supposed to be done for the end of this month, but it's now been pushed back till next month. So I'm going to be working with latex, and I'm going to really, really enjoy that one.
Cool. Yeah, that's a world I have not dabbled in yet. Although I will tell you one thing that we are playing with just as of this last weekend. I like using latex rubber to seal my like this axe back here is sealed with latex rubber. Excuse me. Dude, a mask maker in Portland. Brittany and I were down in Wizard World Portland this last weekend. I met up with a dude, Mark, who makes masks, but he doesn't slip cast them in latex. He slips cast them in neoprene, which is kind of neat. It's really, really durable rubber. Really rigid too, like rigid enough to sand it. So I got my hands on some. He gave me some to play with, so we're gonna be playing with that. I always like messing around with new materials.
That sounds like fun. I might have to try and pick some up.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's the sort of thing where I can put a good sealing coat on a prop or a costume piece, and then maybe do a little bit of finishing sanding on top of it. It'll make the foam armor a lot more rigid. But also because you cannot sand the latex.
No. Yeah.
But if I could because I'm so picky about the texture on the stuff I make, being able to sand it after I've sealed it would be awesome. And it still has a little bit of flex to it. So I will keep everyone up to date. Neoprene, it's the new hotness.
Make a note of that.
Cool. Like I said, we were just in Wizard World Portland. Brittany and I were playing around down there. We got to hang out with our pal Harrison Cricks, part of the exclusive group that you're a member of, the Daft Punk Helmet Builders Guild, which there are a lot of you out there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That was super fun. Cool. All right, we've got some questions. We've got a very active chat down there. We got... another quick note, too, by the way, everyone. In the Twitch chat, I did figure out how to enable links. So if you have stuff you're working on and you want to show other people in the chat, you can post links in the chat now. Or you should be able to, I think. Cool. We got a full group of people there. We got a whole bunch of questions. You ready, Thom?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Good. Good, because this first question from Fearless Facade is just for you, and he's curious about what paints you use for your Fallout 4 pipe pistol. He's taken a commission for some power armor helmets, and he's curious about getting a similar finish. So what'd you do to finish that guy?
I used the most basic acrylics I have in my collection. I used raw sienna, burnt sienna, raw umber, and I think that was pretty much it. And then I did a little bit of dry brush.
Oh, come back, Skype. Skype is bailing
brushing
out
with Tamiya Chrome. I'm not sure which X number it.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry, Skype just bailed on us, but you're okay now.
Yep.
You're talking about dry brushing and then what?
Yeah, it was just Tamiya Paints.
Okay.
Tamiya, you might say it.
Yeah. Awesome. And what was the base? Was most of that things like Sintra, like plastic parts for the gun?
No, there were a few bits that were PVC foam board, some styrene, but most of it was genuine parts. Most of it was timber. I used some metal, and all the bolts and fixings and screws were real mechanical fixings. So I covered the metallic parts just some car spray that I had lying around. I don't even know what color it was. It was like a gunmetal kind of.
All right, cool. Looks like the Skype is having trouble with the ocean in between us.
Yeah, seems to be coming in. Okay.
All right, you're back. Cool. Yeah, especially if you're working on a one day build, using the actual genuine materials is going to help you work a lot faster. Because then the wood already looks like wood. You don't have to paint it. That's just pretty handy. Really cool. I don't know if that's going to help Fearless Facade for the helmet. Because the helmet's going to... You're not going to find one of those lying around.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, but that is a testament to the kind of finishes you can get with a really basic just paint set. Just using normal acrylic paints.
Yeah. Well,
for sure.
I did a live stream last night. I was painting the axe from Tomb Raider, and I used the exact same paints and the exact same techniques. So I did this really, really quickly last night, and it looks terrible, which is great. It looks like it's been used for 20 years. But yeah, that's on my YouTube channel. I think it's about an hour and a half long, and I show all the paints and all the techniques that I kind of went through to do the bolt action pistol.
Very cool. We'll go find that and post a link to that in the show notes for this episode. Awesome. Go have fun with that Fearless Facade. Get really, really intimate with your acrylic paints. All right, we have another question. This one comes from It's Kiwi, and It's Kiwi is another one of our regulars in the old chat there. Curious, how has your camera held up to all the dust created in prop making? Do you protect the camera in any way? What do you use to shoot just normal photos and stuff in the shop?
I have got two cameras. I've got a Nikon, I can't remember the number.
Yeah.
The D200, and then I've got a Canon that I've currently stolen off my girlfriend, which I think is a 1200 or something like that.
Yeah.
It does. You can notice them get a little bit grimy and a bit dusty, so I try and use the airline to dust them off as often as possible and just not have them too close to wherever I'm doing some really heavy sanding.
Yep, I got mine right here. This is I'll swap over to me here. Oh, there we go. This is the Nikon D7000, and I got this when it came out like 5 or 6 years ago. This line is actually partially weather sealed, which means it can, like, if it's sprinkling rain out, it'll be all right. I wouldn't dunk it in the ocean. I mean, I've done that before. It doesn't go great. But this guy here is partially weather sealed, and dust was never a problem with this guy. So it's been just fine. What it doesn't handle very well is being dropped on the floor. So I tipped this over on the tripod, and it landed on the hot shoe up here, and that got really bent up. And I didn't realize at the time, but it also unseated some of the shutter mechanics, and then eventually the shutter blades sort of folded on themselves, and it became completely inoperable. So I sent it to Nikon, and they fixed it for a hefty fee, but now it's just fine. So, dust, not a problem. Dropping, a problem. Cool. All right.
Yeah, don't drop your camera.
Yeah, and also if there's dust in the air, don't take the lens off. That's when you're going to get dust in there.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, if I have to swap lenses, I'll come into my office, swap lenses, and then go back in the shop. All right. Thank you. It's Kiwi. We have another, again, from one of our regulars. This is Hey Patch. Do you have any tips or good practices when it comes to shipping props, as they often look like weapons? As far as, like, the fact that it looks like a weapon, I've never had any problems with that. Have you, Tom?
No. I've never sent anything that's, like, super realistic. Everything has been quite sort of sci-fi. It's quite obvious that it's a prop. I was a bit worried about where I was going to have to ship the pipe bolt action pistol, because it does look a little bit dangerous. But that's only going to the UK, so it shouldn't be an issue. They won't check it or x-ray it. But I think just at least even a disclaimer in the box, a note from you saying this is a prop, it's made of whatever, that might help if it does happen to get pulled over by customs. But no, I've not had any issues with it, thankfully.
Yeah, neither have I. Like, when I ship stuff internationally too, just about everything I send is plastic, right? So it's not going to set off a metal detector or anything, which is a pretty surefire way to get it flagged. I'll just write in the customs box that it's a model kit, like plastic model kit, and that hasn't ever been a problem. It is a good idea to note the rules when you're shipping stuff internationally. Different countries have different rules about that sort of stuff. So if you take a good example, if you're sending something to Canada that was an airsoft gun that you've modified, you can get in trouble for that. So keep that in mind. But if it's just a solid hunk of cast plastic, it's not going to be a problem, I don't think. There was a similar note from Nerdy Views. Any tips on traveling on a plane with dangerous-looking props? I'd like to bring my Ghostbusters Proton Pack to San Diego Comic-Con, but I'm worried the TSA will do something to it. Have you ever had any trouble flying with your props?
I don't think I've ever flown with a prop.
No?
So, no.
No, I would say a couple things. Definitely, you'll have to check that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
like this right here in my carry-on would not go over great. That would absolutely not go great. So if I was bringing that with me, I would check it. But I've flown with things like the huge Valkyrie rifle that Harrison Cricks made from Mass Effect. I flew with that once, and I put it in a guitar case, which was awesome. And it traveled just fine, and it didn't break. But he's had a similar thing where it did break. In fact, I believe the TSA broke it intentionally because they're jerks.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, I wouldn't travel with anything. I wouldn't fly with anything that I am worried about breaking without it being like insured. But I wouldn't say they're gonna worry about too much with it looking dangerous if it's not dangerous, right? If it's plastic, like a proton pack. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. But also, if you're worried, like a lot of those proton packs are like fiberglass, so they're probably not gonna break. But just keep that in mind. So maybe mail it ahead of time. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Cool. I would say it's an unfortunate testament to human nature, but if you travel and check any lightsabers, those have a tendency to vanish from luggage after passing through the TSA, which is a bummer. Because they do X-ray all that stuff, so they'll see a thing that looks like a lightsaber, they'll know it's a lightsaber, and then they'll steal it, which is a bummer.
I brought a lightsaber back from Paris last month, and it was right beside me the whole way. And I was worried we might have some issues with it, but no, I think they're well used to people flying out of Paris with lightsabers.
That's the thing that happens a lot.
I think so, yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. All right, next question comes from Brendan. Brendan says, for something like a Darth Vader helmet, would styrene be durable enough to vacuum form the top? If not, what is?
I don't know if you could vacuum form it. It seems like quite a deep helmet to pull from styrene. You'd need to have a considerably thick styrene, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 mil. So it might be rather difficult to do. I know the Stormtrooper helmets were traditionally done on a vacuum former, but they're made up of multiple parts and they're kind of orientated a lot flatter. But I don't see a Darth Vader helmet being able to orientate it quite flat. They're traditionally fiberglass cast, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what I would imagine. They come out of a mold. Durability is probably not the issue there. But if you're gonna sculpt the Darth Vader helmet anyway, then make a silicone mold of it.
Yeah.
Much the way that you did with your Daft Punk helmets, and then you could cast anything out of there if you want. And then the other question Brendan had was, does the iDye poly for tinting, Petg, come in more than just black? And yes, it does come in all kinds of colors. You do. Have you done much stuff with visors, Tom?
Yep, I've done a lot with visors.
Oh,
so I did a lot of dyeing and tinting with the iDye poly, which is great stuff to work with. Their black isn't exactly black, so you need to put another color through there. So for the Daft Punk helmets, I'll put a green through, which just gives it the nice sort of nice shade you're looking for.
There you go. Yeah, I've noticed that the black, when you put it on cloth, it gobbles up all that pigment and it looks very, very black. But when you tint other like plastics with it, especially with light shining through it, you'll see it's kind of like a Sharpie. Like a black Sharpie marker isn't totally black. There's some other pigments in there. There you go. It sounds like Brendan here is going to make a super sick Darth Vader helmet, though. So that sounds awesome.
It does, yeah.
Cool. All right. Oh, I've got a picture for this next one. Let's go here and bring up the thing. There we go. This one comes from Bud, and actually I have to read the question. Where's the question? He got something 3D printed from Shapeways, and it needs a little bit of cleanup. It seems like it was printed with a powder type instead of using a filament and extruder. That's correct. Should I use XTC 3D to smooth it or just sand off the rough edges? And the picture I had is right here. Thom, have you ever gotten anything printed from Shapeways or something similar?
I have. Way back when I first started with the Daft Punk helmets, I got the ear pucks for the Maximus Helmet, 3D printed. And they were beautiful. They were really, really nice. So I believe with those, I had them printed with a wall thickness of 1 millimeter. So I slush cast the inside with polyurethane, so that it wouldn't break, and then I finished the outside just using some primer and some sandpaper and a couple of hours of my time.
Yeah, a lot of what we've done to finish prints from Shapeways has been using filler primer and sanding, like a couple of passes of that to really fill in that texture, and lots of sanding.
But it depends on what your 3D print looks like. If it's too detailed, too minute, you might not be able to do that. So you might have to use something like XTC, which is really nice stuff, but it absorbs a lot of the detail. It's quite gooey. It's kind of roughs everything out.
Well, this guy here, the Raised Blaster, was done from a 3D print on it's right behind my head, the Dremel 3D printer right there. And the quality you're going to get out of that guy is going to be different than the stuff from Shapeways, but it's still pretty good. And this guy, the masters from this were 3D printed, and the finishing work we did on that was just filler primer and sanding. Just a couple passes of that, and then some normal priming and sanding, and then we molded it and cast it. And that worked out great. And you can see it clearly maintained all of that nice fine detail on these little lines and everything. So there you go, bud. You got a lot of sanding ahead of you, but that's going to look pretty neat. All right, cool. Oh, this one, next question comes from Nick at Modulus Props, and he's curious about, he says matrix molding, but I think that he means just casting something that's really thin. So for example, like a mask, all right, where instead of slush casting it, you make a 2-part mold and then pour resin in to make a really thin casting. The concerns he has with slush casting, you have to trim a lot of stuff afterwards. And he's curious if instead he can make a 2-part mold. And he's curious about venting and all that sort of stuff. Have you ever done any molds like that, Thom, where the piece ends up really thin, like a 2-part mold?
No, I have toyed with the idea, but it's kind of like it's almost like vacuum casting or pressure casting. I think you experimented with that with a mask you did a year ago. And I know the process professionally is really, really complex. Everything needs to be done under pressure. In specialized equipment, but doing it, I think there's TigerStone FX who make a lot of polyurethane rubber masks and chest pieces, a lot of Batman stuff. They have mastered that technique of 2-part molds, and they produce brilliant pieces. I have no idea how they do it, and they don't share their secrets, rightly so, because they are masters of what they do. But it is possible, but I think that you're going to have to do a lot of experimentation and a lot of waste material and possibly 2 or 3 versions of the mold before you actually figure it out. But if you do figure it out, let us know.
Yeah.
I would like to know.
The guys over, obviously these guys are awesome, the guys at Legacy FX, and we will post a link to this video. Stan Lee went and visited them, which was awesome, and they're showing how they did the mask for Iron Man. And this is a 2-part mold built as a matrix mold, and that's how they do that front mask. And you can see they pull this thing out, and it is gorgeous the way it pops out right there. And I don't believe they pressure cast it. In fact, if I skip forward to where they're pouring it, the way they've designed it, they're mixing up their goo here and pouring. They have this large cylinder to have a reservoir of resin to fill up, and then they have these vent holes so that resin goes in, gravity feeds it in, and you can see a lot of resin bleeds out of there.
Yeah.
But it means there's no bubbles in there.
Yeah.
So that's how they do theirs. Again, we'll post a link in the description to that one. But that's really great. Yeah, there you go. There you go, Nick. Be ready to do a lot of testing and wasting a little bit of material. But it's totally possible to do that.
Yeah.
Or you could just slush cast it.
Just slush cast it. Yep, that's the simplest solution.
Great. I will post, actually, I can post this in the chat. Boop. There's the YouTube link right there for you guys. All right, let's grab another question. This one comes from Hulko, and he's building C-3PO from scratch. He's planning on vacuum forming a majority of it. And I was wondering if you had any tips on making a vacuum forming buck for such a tight-fitting costume. What do you think, Thom? I think you've done more vacuum forming than I have. I haven't done very much.
Yeah, I've done a vacuum forming. I've built a vacuum former. And I do a lot of vacuum forming for the Daft Punk advisors and other bits and pieces. But I think you would need to base that around a torso. So I think you'd have to start off with some sort of duct tape mannequin so that you can actually get it nice and snug to your body and design it around your body rather than just from guesstimates of what a body should be. So I think that would be the best way to start up and sculpt up on top of that. So maybe start with a duct tape one, ideally a plaster one, so it's more rigid. But that would be my starting point anyway. Yes,
I agree. Then you're not guessing on dimensions or sizing or anything. But yeah, that you've got a steep climb ahead of you, Mr. Hulko. That's going to be quite an involved build. That makes me think of the build that David Carpenter did for the Didact from Halo 4. And that took him 6 months and a lot of sculpting and a lot of material to mold. Yeah. He ended up molding and casting his, but for yours you could do something similar for vacuum forming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe
incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. We'll post a link to that down in the description. But David Carpenter over at Evil FX. But yeah, it was basically his full-time effort for like 6 months to put that together.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he ended up with a suit that perfectly fits snug around his body. He could barely move. But it looked amazing.
It's the most important thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's grab another one from Nightly Engineering. I'm going to be making an Exosuit cosplay, and I was wondering if you could give me any tips or advice. Also, how would I add magnets to foam panels so they can be taken on and off the exosuit? Sorry. Exosuit. I'm not sure what the reference is to the exosuit. If that's from a specific thing.
Is it from that Tom Cruise movie, Edge of Tomorrow? Those guys wore exosuits?
Yeah, I'm not sure. When I do a search online, I find a whole bunch of different stuff. But any sort of like armored suit that, sits outside your body, I guess. If you want to add magnets to your foam panels, that I know plenty about that. You can glue, like neodymium magnets glues to foam really, really easily. I usually use super glue for that. And it's great because the foam is so lightweight, you don't even really need very many or very big magnets to do that. How about you, Thom? You got any like armor builds coming up or anything like that?
I am definitely 110% building a full suit of armor for myself this year if it kills me. I've said it for 2 years that I'm going to do it, and I just need to just schedule out time. So part of the Patreon is that I can do something like that. So yeah, I'm kind of I want to do something from Mass Effect. I know everyone done a year ago, but I haven't got one, so I want one for myself. So I'm going to attempt that. So I will be putting out a particular trilogy of a book and referencing that the whole way, and hopefully I'll be able to get through it in a couple of months.
That sounds pretty fantastic to me. Again, too, if you just if people are looking to build suits of armor of any type, we mentioned earlier getting a duct tape dummy of yourself or a torso to build off of. That's going to help you out a ton in the long run. Do you have I have a plaster torso casting of myself. Do you have anything similar to that for yourself?
No, not yet, but I have found a colleague who is willing to do it for me at some point in the spring when it gets a little bit warmer here. So I'm going to try and do that, and I'm actually going to try and take a fiberglass casting from that. Maybe make a couple. I don't have a lot of room in my shop, but I'm sure I can make room. I want to try and make it with like detachable arms, like one arm that's going out like that, and then one arm that's going down, so I can kind of take them off and be able to adjust the costume on it. Without having just one static, rigid mannequin. So that's the plan. Whether or not it goes ahead, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good first step, though. Low Life Toaster in the chat is curious if there's a tutorial I can link for a duct tape torso. I don't have one on hand right now, but we are probably going to film one of those pretty soon, because that's a question that comes up an awful lot.
No, I've filmed a duct tape headcast.
Oh yeah.
I've not edited the video. It's another video that I recorded last year but never edited. So maybe I'll try and get that one out. But it's the same technique.
All right.
Wrap yourself in duct tape, cut it off without cutting your skin, stick it back together.
Actually, I believe Andrew Cook from DFT over there, I believe he did a video with some friends on a duct tape dummy. If we can dig that up, we'll post a link in the chat or in the show notes.
YouTube somewhere.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep rolling here. Mike wants to know. Mike from What You See Here Creative. He says, I have the pleasure of knowing Mike. Thom. Pleasure? No, it's... and he gave me the awesome opportunity to be one of his cosplay guests at the very first CosCon last year. It was great, but I'm wondering what plans he and Ali have for further CosCons in 2016. And how much would it take to get me, Bill, out over there to Scotland? He says he's willing to chip in. All right. So what do you have coming up for CosCon?
Well, we had hoped that we would have announced something by now, but unfortunately we had some major setbacks with venues basically being dicks. So having a meeting on Friday with a new venue, and it's fingers crossed that it's going to be able to schedule a date pretty quickly, because all the calendar is full. So we're trying to get it launched and get guests invited. So we're hoping to do 2 in Scotland this year. We did 1 last year, so we're hoping to do 2 in Scotland. 1 back in Aberdeen where we were, and then 1 in Glasgow, which is where we are based. So fingers crossed in the next week or 2 we can actually launch something. We're really excited about it. But yeah, you're definitely on the list of guests we want to have, Bill. So we're hoping that we can sell some tickets and get you over here.
That would be really cool. Yeah, I got to get back over to the UK, drag my lovely wife with me too, just to see all my friends out there. They just did, what was it? London Super Comic Con was last weekend. And I wanted to go out. I wanted to get out there again, but they invited a bunch of other international guests, which is awesome. Some of our other cool friends. Yeah. So hopefully I can get out there again sometime very soon. Last time I was there, it was really lovely. Everyone was super nice. Let's see here. That was Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Good, Mike.
All right. Next one comes from Corium 9 Creations Center. I'm still a novice when it comes to sanding. Do you have any go-to resources, particularly when one needs to change tools? About sanding. Let's see. I realize a big part is learning by doing, but I want to make sure I come away with the right lesson. I recently used a sanding sponge for the first time on Sintra, and it worked great, but I actually don't know if that's what made the difference. Okay. Do you have any just general sanding advice, Thom? Is Thom still with us? Thom has turned into a statue. All right, one quick second. I'm looking up a video I just saw recently on sanding. All right, cool. While we wait for Thom to get back here, I'm going to swap over. Oh, we lost Thom. Let's just do this. So this guy, Jason Freeney, is a really cool, let's see if I can find videos. There we go. He's a really cool sculptor and toy maker guy. And he did a really good video. If you go look up his page on Facebook, he posted a video there. And this is all about wet sanding. He does a really great job explaining wet sanding. And it's pretty awesome. So folks really ought to go check that out. But mostly it's a matter of, getting all the different types, different grits of sandpaper and working through them slowly, starting with a higher grit sandpaper or a lower grit sandpaper to fair out your surface to get it to the form that you want, going up to a higher grit sandpaper to knock back a bunch of the sanding marks that you created with the first set. And then if you want to get really picky with the finish on your surface, then you can start sanding or wet sanding. I believe he used 220 grit here, but you can get 400, 800. You can go totally bonkers with your wet sanding. Tom's back. All right, cool.
Yay!
I was just filling in some stuff about wet sanding. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the process you go through to get your Daft Punk helmets to such a nice shiny surface?
Ooh. Years and years and years of practice. So with the Daft Punk, I'm assuming you're talking about when I get them to like a mirror gloss before I cast them and mold them.
Yeah, well, let's say mostly just the steps towards getting it there. Not necessarily how you get it to a mirror finish, but like
Start off with.
Yeah, just the sanding steps to get them pretty shiny.
To get them pretty shiny, starting off with rough papers, filling in any gaps with some Bondo, some filler, and then just working your way down from. I usually will work with an 80 grit to start off with, just to sort of really chisel through the Bondo, and then I tend to work with 120 and 240. Start with 120 and then go to 240. Building up layers of primer and then sanding it back, making sure that all your surfaces have no dips or hollows or high ridges. And then once I am quite happy with that at 240, then I'll start working towards the higher grit papers. And I will basically do a wet sanding wash for each paper, going up in increments of about 100 up to, I think I've gone to 2,500 to get it to a mirror gloss now. Yeah, it gets crazy.
Now, do you, between, so at that point, you're really just sort of sanding the primer, right?
Yeah. When I'm going for the gloss finish, I will see about putting on a gloss paint, and then I will wet sand that as well, and I'll also use rubbing compound to get it. So it's kind of like auto body techniques to get it, to buff it to that gloss finish. But yeah, generally it's just primer when you're doing your sort of sculpting and getting shape.
Cool. The chat's it's funny, they're kind of divided here. NYC Assassin says sanding is evil, but then Fancy Lad says I love wet sanding. there's a pretty good split there. And then
if you don't like sanding, you're in the wrong business. I think. You've got the wrong hobby.
Phoenix Revival says 2,500. Isn't that basically a wet rag?
No, I've got 3,000 actually.
Oh wow!
But it's super smooth. It gets such a nice finish. There's nothing more pleasurable than seeing your own reflection in a Daft Punk helmet, and then you cover it in clay. Yeah,
fantastic. All right, well, thank you, Corium9, for your question. Yeah, sanding. That's what prop making is all about. Our next question comes from Christy, and she's making Tinkerbell armor, which sounds awesome. But I haven't found any fan art to help out. How would you go about designing it? I love this idea.
It sounds really cool.
Yeah, I haven't done any mashup type things myself, but I love that idea. And I would start by maybe mashing together Tinkerbell with some other, like you mentioned, Mass Effect armor. Make Mass Effect armor for Tinkerbell. That would be a good place to start. That's what I think.
One way to do it, yeah. Just start sketching, ideas, finding pieces of armor that you like. It doesn't have to necessarily be an entire suit of armor, but just individual components that you like, and then see if you can tailor them to suit the character, to suit Tinkerbell. I really want to see what a Tinkerbell armor would look like. That'd be cool.
Yeah, me too. I would also say that it's possible to go out. I was just this last weekend. I was hanging out with Zach Fischer. Let me grab his page here. Zach Fischer Illustration is the name of his page, and he is a designer and an illustrator, and a really, really good one at that. Yeah. And cosplayers will go to him and commission him to help design really cool custom costumes for them. Most famously, the Deathwing armor that he helped Jessica Negri do. Let me find a picture here.
That was really cool.
And someone did a sculpt of it. That's really cool. He's got tons of really great pictures, but here we go. That's a good one. So there we go. There's Zach with the design that he did on his iPad there next to the costume that Jessica made, which is really awesome. So don't think that you've got to go into this all by yourself. You could go find an illustrator or designer friend, or commission someone to help you along your path.
Checking Instagram for illustrators or DeviantArt would be a good place to start. See, has somebody done something along that lines? Oh.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That's cool. I'm excited. I want to see this Tinkerbell armor realized. Pretty cool. All right, let's. That was Christy. So thank you, Christy.
Thanks, Christy.
Let's grab another one. We got a handful more here, and just about 10 more minutes on the show. Mad Props Gaming wants to know, what materials do you use to deal with Fuzzy Mdf after shaping?
Fuzzy Mdf after shaping. Yep.
What do you like to do with that, Tom?
I've not dealt with Fuzzy Mdf in quite a while, but I have used super glue in the past. Mm-hmm. It can be quite cheap and easy way of doing it. Filler, I think at one point before I knew how to tackle it, I just used lots and lots and lots and lots of filler primer and sanding. But I'm starting to use less and less MDF because apparently it's not very healthy for you.
No, it's not.
So I'm trying to find alternatives and not use as much of it in props. Trying to stick with some more plastics that aren't as dangerous to your health.
Yeah. That's a good idea. The other thing, and you mentioned super glue. That's what my go-to has been for, especially the cut edges of your MDF get really fuzzy. I'll just douse them in super glue, but also be warned that you can develop a sensitivity to super glue. So if you're going to use like large quantities of it like that, then you want to wear a respirator or something.
Definitely.
Yeah, but that's totally an option. There's also something called LDF, which apparently is not toxic. I haven't got my hands on any of it. I know Adam Savage likes to use it. Low density fiberboard, or Trupan is the
I like the name. Yeah,
Trupan is the company that makes it. So here we go. Trupan MDF HDF panels. It's just really cool. But again, I haven't had my hands on any of that stuff to play with it. Not yet, anyway. Maybe I'll just go ask Adam Savage if he can hook me up.
You can buy MDF without the nasty chemicals, the formaldehyde and stuff in it, but I think it's ridiculously expensive, which is quite a shame because it's quite a useful material.
Yeah, it sure is. Most of my District 9 rifle is made out of MDF, and it weighs about 1 million pounds.
Yeah, heavy.
There you go. There's a handful of things for you to try. Mad Props Gaming. All right, this next one comes from Steve, and he says, would you recommend using a gloss paint as a primer when doing a metallic finish on a Nerf pistol, much like the way you did with Ray's Blaster? That's getting a good shiny metallic finish on a prop using paint. It can be really challenging. Do you have a go-to method for that, Tom?
Yeah, a gloss finish before you apply your metallic paint. It's something I experiment with the chroming for the Daft Punk helmet. So the shinier your helmet is before you apply the chroming process, the shinier it's going to be afterwards, is the theory. So that also works when you're applying silver and metallic-y chromy paints. So I'm trying to think of the brand name. I think you've used it. Is it Alclad?
Yeah.
Works really well, but that needs to go on to a black gloss. Well, the chrome one anyway does need to go on a black gloss. So yeah, it can be quite easily achieved. So yeah, primer first, then black gloss paint, and then your metallic paint.
Yeah, that's basically how I did this guy, and it's pretty shiny. I wouldn't call it a chrome finish, not even close. But it's pretty damn shiny, and for a paint solution versus actually going and getting it chromed, it's way cheaper. Have you watched the Stan Winston School metallic finishes videos?
I have not yet. No.
Those are worth checking out. It's basically the same process, but they use a couple of different materials in theirs, and they in the video they're painting up Predator helmets.
Yeah.
And they make them look all metallic. They put down a black coat, and then they cover that with a gloss urethane. So, like automotive paints. So that the glossy finish, it's black, it's glossy, and it's really, really durable. And then they apply their chrome, I think it's lacquer paints on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the super crazy cool way to do it. I don't have any. Did I get any? No, I don't have any gloss clear urethane, not yet. But if Harrison keeps poking me, then I'll be trying that pretty soon because he's a big fan of that stuff.
Yep, been using it a lot recently, hasn't he?
Oh yeah. But if you want to go with a sort of a cheaper route, then you could even do it with a gloss black spray paint. You could do it that way. Yeah,
definitely.
For sure. All right. We have another question here in a couple more minutes. We have a picture, and it's the mask from Gladiator. Let's see. Strange Brit Props is saying, I'm going to be making Maximus Helmet from Ridley Scott's Gladiator. Man, I've watched that movie so many times. He's planning on sculpting the main helmet and making a matrix mold. Do you think it would be best to do these as part of the mold or cast them separately and attach them afterwards? Let's look at the helmet here. I've got a picture. Boop. There we go. So, Tom, if you were going to mold and cast that, would you do it as all one big part, or would you do it in separate pieces?
Is he talking? Which helmet is he talking about?
Oh, that's right. You can't see this picture.
I'm afraid to open up my browser in case the internet goes all crappy again. So,
yeah. So it's the helmet that Maximus wears when he's obscuring his identity from what's his face, Commodus.
Yeah. So it's got a mohawk and it's got little prongs coming out of it.
Yeah. So it covers the front of his face down to his chin, but it also covers the back of his head more than halfway down to his neck. So it does cover a lot of his helmet or his head, but his ears are open.
Right.
I'm
thinking from memory that it should be achievable. It's not. There's not two parts to it, is there?
No, I don't think so. I would probably try and do it in one part.
I would do it in one part, definitely. What I would do is I'd blank off those areas for his eyes and for his mouth and for the back of his neck, and then just cut them away from the casting before you prep the helmet. But yeah, I would do it in one part.
Yeah,
it's a one-piece helmet, definitely.
For sure. And I forgot, I haven't mentioned this yet, but you did basically a whole live stream series on molding and casting your Daft Punk helmets.
I did.
Oh yeah, and it's a lot of content to chew through, but it's all there. So if people are looking for, and we'll post a link to that in the show notes. But that will totally get you most of the way there.
I think that was like 6 or 7 hours of live streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Which was great. Proved really popular.
My favorite part was, I think, the 45 minutes of you trying to get the mother mold off of the silicone.
That was so bad. See, that usually happens the first time, but when you're live and you know people are watching, there's people like sending you messages about how they think you should do it, and you're like, no, I just need to just keep on tugging.
Which is funny, we did that matrix mold for the District 9 rifle, and we had a similar experience trying to get the jacket mold off of there, and but I didn't film all of it.
Smart.
Yeah. So in the video, you watch me like struggling with it for about a second, and then it cuts to me going, and it came right off.
No, I was definitely 45 minutes, but
Yeah.
no, because I've molded the same helmet before, and I knew that I could add on like an extra 2 hours work making it into a 4-part jacket, or I could just struggle with it for half an hour or so the first time I popped it. So I chose to struggle, but forgot I was live streaming.
Yeah. So a quick note on that too, and this is much more advanced mold making type stuff. But of course, I had the opportunity to go work in Frank Ippolito's shop, and I got to see how he makes his molds, which is to say, like a Greek god. He's so good at it. When he makes these really big fiberglass molds for mask making, for silicone mask making. And he sculpts, you know how you'll sculpt in your seam lines, flanges, so that you get that registration between the seam. He will also sculpt in gaps so that you can pry them apart.
Yeah.
So and your mold needs to be really durable, like really good thick, fiberglass. But then instead of trying to get your fingers in there, you can just put a pry bar in there and crack it open.
Yeah.
So next time I make a matrix mold, that's going to be a must-have.
Yeah, sure.
But anyway, we'll have a link to that video if you guys want to go watch Thom struggle in real time. It's all there. Cool. That's a fun way to end the show, everybody. Hey, thanks so much, you guys, for joining us over here on our Twitch stream for Prop Live. Of course, if you haven't already, hit follow on Twitch, because we do live streams from the shop every week, as well as this show. And thank you guys so much for bringing such great questions.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Thom, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me, Bill.
Oh, yeah.
As always.
What do you have anything coming up? Anything you want to point people towards other than your page? I'll bring that up right here.
Just Google Sorenzo Props, and I think the first page and a half of your Google search will be Sorenzo Props. You can get me on all sorts of social media platforms. So come say hello.
Perfect. Cool. Well, thank you everyone so much for watching us today. We will be back again next week with another fine edition of Prop Live. So long, everybody.
Bye-bye.